Okay, so let's bring ourselves into a comfortable shape just for a moment. And you could close the eyes or soften the gaze and just take a few deep breaths in and out. And as you connect to the breath and your body in the moment, just notice maybe there's some sounds in the space that you couldn't hear before that you hear now. Maybe there's some sensations in the body that you couldn't feel before, but you feel them now. Maybe there's some energy in the room you weren't feeling before, and maybe you can feel it now. Just taking everything in about this moment for a couple more breaths. And then gently allow the eyes to start to flicker open and bring yourself back into the space. Beautiful. Okay, welcome everyone to this episode of Sober Yoga Girl podcast. I am so excited to be sitting with Melissa McGovern today. And Melissa and I met in April when she came to Bali on the Sobah Sistahs retreat. And I was just so impressed we connected on Instagram and seeing Melissa's fitness journey and her story and everything she was sharing with the world. And I just knew I wanted to have you join and speak for our community and share the story with the podcast as well. So welcome, Melissa. And I know you're close to a year sober, right? When's your sober date?
Hi, Alex. Thanks so much for having me. It's really great to see you again. My sober date is in 10 days, August 14th.
Oh my God, that's how you knew when my book was coming out.
Yep.
That's funny. Melissa said your book's coming out in 10 days. I was like, wow, she really likes your notes.
It's a great day to have big things happen. August
Oh,
14th. Yeah.
congrats.
Thank you.
So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about like what led up to you to that sober date. What was kind of your journey beforehand?
My journey beforehand was sober curious for probably the past 5 or 6 years. And actually, we never had this conversation, but when I was in Bali and you spoke about 1 year no beer, I had a membership with them.
Oh, wow.
And not a lot of people know about that because it's an English group. I mean, that definitely have spread around the world in the years since they started. But I think it was in 2018 or 2019 that I heard Andy Ramage on the Rich Roll podcast. And 5, 6 years ago, podcasts were not like they are now. It was, they weren't as popular. And I don't know how I even found that podcast, but he is such a dynamic speaker, as you know. And he had a book out, 28 days, alcohol free, just like a reset. And I thought it just intrigued me so much. And I picked up that book. I think this was in 2019, like the spring of 2019. Couple years previous to that, I would have doctor's appointments and my liver enzymes would be highly elevated, slightly elevated, not out of control. And my doctor would say, take a break, don't drink for 3 weeks, come back and we'll retest. So that happened a couple times leading up to 2019. And I got this book and I started reading. I would get like 6 days into it and then go out and drink. I would try to, yeah, it was a lot of stopping and starting. And in 2019, I went to my niece's wedding in September in Colorado. God, I got so hammered the night before the rehearsal dinner, and we were in the mountains. So it really affects you. Like 10 drinks can feel like 30. And I was wrecked the next day. And I just, it started occurring to me that I could not do this. It was really like, what am I doing? So in November of 2019, after another night like that, the next day I woke up and I was like, I'm going to commit to the 90-day program that they had. And that's a program where you get emails and you get videos and you have a Facebook group and you stay somewhat connected. You stay as connected as you want to, right? You can engage in the online group as much as you want to. And I started to feel really good. I started to feel great. I was cruising along and losing weight and getting healthier and getting I went to the doctor during that time and I said, I'm done. Like, I can't do it anymore. I think that was December of 2019. I had like a whole 6 weeks or something alcohol free in me. And I felt wonderful. And I kept going through the holidays. And then March 12th, 2020 in New York was like D-Day for COVID-19. And my daughter had a big track meet that got canceled. And I mean, you guys all know how crazy that time was. And in New York, especially, there were, as it went on, it was just surreal. And I said to my husband that day, it was exactly 4 months I had under my belt. And I said, I think I'm going to have a beer with dinner. We were going out to dinner. And he said, have a beer. And he said, do you think you can have just one? And I was like, yeah, sure I can. Right? Because the mental gymnastics game starts playing in your head. And beer wasn't my drink, so I knew I could have one beer, and I did have one beer. And I can't remember exactly when I started going to the wine store, and because the liquor stores were open, that was an essential business. And the food you ordered to get delivered would deliver wine as well. So things started ramping up again for me. And I couldn't have just one. I could never have just one. I was an all or nothing drinker since the beginning of time. So in the pandemic, that really it sped up for me. I actually had some success as far as business wise in the pandemic. I started my own cloth mask making company, and I was like a one woman, I joke, I was a one woman sweatshop because I was at my sewing machine cranking out masks all day. I was wholesaling them we have a place in upstate New York. I had some businesses up there that were buying them and selling them. And it kept me really busy. And it also kept me thinking that I deserved that wine at 5 o'clock after sitting in front of my sewing machine for 7, 8 hours a day. So it was ramping up and it was somewhat in control until it wasn't, because like we all know, alcohol is a highly addictive substance, and the more you drink, the more your body wants it. In 2021, we had a big loss in our family. My husband's mother got cancer, and within 10 days, she was gone. It was very fast and very aggressive. It was wrapped around her spine. And we all booked tickets to go to see her, what we thought would have been our last time to see her and say goodbye. And it ended up being her memorial. that was a really big loss for our family and us as a couple. And it was about the same time that my very best friend, T. Scott, who I moved to New York with in 1995, and he was the best man in my, man of honor in my wedding, saw both my kids grow up in the world. He had a huge drinking problem, and he hid it for years and years. And right when my mother-in-law passed was when he had told me that he had liver disease. His outlook was not good. And he was 53 years old. When you hear that, and my naivete around the matter, because he was always a beer drinker, I said, you're just drinking beer. How can that be? How can that be? Well, he was drinking more than beer, and it was really hard. It's probably a bigger podcast, but it was really hard to see someone who was so charismatic and full of life and just walked into a room and owned it, shrink into someone that was controlled by alcohol. He was also HIV positive, so his body did not have a chance. And in the spring of 2022, he went into the hospital to have a routine procedure that you need to have done when you are suffering from this horrible disease. He needed to have his body drained. That's a regular thing that needs to be done. And he had sepsis and pneumonia, and he never left the hospital. He passed away in the hospital 6 days later at age 54. Ah, it gutted me. It gutted me in many ways because I thought I lost my best friend, and the way I lost him was something that I'm dealing with, that I'm struggling with. Like, how is this happening? In my head, I thought, is this the thing that is going to really impact you enough to make some decisions about your life? Like, is this going to be it? This has to be it. I even thought about going to see him in the hospital to get that vision blared, stamped into my brain about how awful someone looks when they have this disease and they are losing their life. And I didn't do that because I knew in my heart of hearts he would never, ever have wanted that. And I hadn't seen him in years because of the pandemic, and he lived in Ohio. And I wanted to remember him the last time I saw him. I had spoken to him regularly on the phone. We were in touch. And I knew he wasn't going to have a long life, but you're just never ready for something like that. And so me dealing with that, the way I chose to deal with that was not to get sober right away. It was to push the fuck it button and drink as much as I want, eat as much as I want. It was still, somewhat pandemic-y, and we ordered food to be delivered all the time. And I just ate my way and drank my way through my grief for about 15, 16 months. And I had to go see my doctor. I had a prescription that I needed refilled, and she wouldn't do a virtual visit for that. And I had been pre-diabetic for about 9 or 10 years. I needed that medication refilled. So I made an appointment for August 15th of 2023. And thinking in my head, I've got a couple months to I know I can stop drinking before that appointment, so I can go in and it won't be as bad as I think it's going to be. Well, I didn't stop drinking until August 14th, the day before that appointment. And I went into that appointment and I confided in her. She had remembered that I had did that 1 year no beer. I changed that number on the form. How much do you drink? 5 to 7 drinks, right? How much do we all lie about that? And I put 20 to 25, which was probably still under what I was drinking. And I told her that I thought I was drinking too much, and she didn't judge me. She didn't scold me. She didn't put me down. She listened to me, and she brought up naltrexone. I didn't even know what naltrexone was. She talked about AA. I told her I didn't think that was my jam. She just heard me, and she told me also that I was not the only one going through this, that she had lots of other patients that come in here and confide in her, and lots of women my age. So we did the blood work, and the blood work comes back very fast. And the middle of the night, I got those results. When I woke up the next morning, there was a notification in my chart. And it was just, it was awful. It was really, really bad. My cholesterol was high, my A1C, my glucose, I was very close to being diabetic. My liver enzymes were through the roof. This is a number there are two numbers, AST and ALT. They're run between 5 and 40, 5 and 35. I had one that was 190 and the other one was 322. These were like off the chart numbers. I have since done research. If your liver enzymes are 2.5 times what the normal range is, you are on the road to liver disease, period. My friend T. Scott didn't drink for the year before he died. The damage was already done. Once you cross over that threshold, there is nothing you can do to reverse it, except a transplant, really, honestly. What else? My blood pressure, my weight. I was the heaviest I've ever been. The summer before I went into the doctor, I was feeling so depleted. I would look in the mirror and hold my belly and just shake it and feel like shit. And I didn't like looking at myself in pictures. I started feeling in the morning, what if I just stayed in bed all day? I had these like awful mental health things going on, and I knew exactly why. I knew it was because I was drinking too much. So when I got the physical results, the two were perfectly aligned, mental and physical, because of one incredibly toxic substance. So she told me in an email, if you don't make drastic behavioral changes, I'm going to put you on medication. I'm going to put you on a statin. I was probably going to head towards the diabetes, blood pressure, all of it. I was 51 years old. I was not that old. And I had to make a decision. And in my head, I thought, is this the path I want to take with my life? Like, just to keep drinking? Or do I really want to like make some changes? And I could have stayed, she said, I want to see you in no less than 3 months. So for 3 months, I could have done all the right things and gone back and said, I'm really good, my numbers are great, and then try to pick up and moderate again. I could have done that. I've done that before with her. In my head, I was like, this is it. This is it. This has got to be it. I have an opportunity to live a longer life than my friend T. Scott did. And I decided to take it. I decided to take that opportunity. And so I kind of went all in, which I know is not the usual MO for a lot of people when they start to get sober. But to me, it's what worked. She said in that email, try to stop drinking, make drastic behavioral changes, try to stop drinking. So I didn't drink, and I laced up my shoes, and I listened to podcasts, and I listened to Quitlet, and I read Quitlet, and I went to the gym, and I walked. And I started noticing changes immediately. Within the first 3 weeks, I probably lost 8 pounds in 3 weeks. I mean, and after 10 days of the withdrawal, which was basically just a dull headache and not sleeping well, I was starting to sleep better. I was feeling better. It happened quickly, and I didn't want it to stop. So I kept going. I kept going. I got through my birthday without drinking. I got through, in 3 months, you can experience a lot of life and some hurdles. I moved my daughter back into college and had some, like things go wrong with that. And it was like, but I'm not drinking. And I went back to see this doctor 11 weeks to the day. And my blood test, everything had completely reversed. I lost 50 points off of my cholesterol. My blood pressure was back to normal. My liver enzymes dropped to that 5 to 40 range. My A1C, my glucose, which was almost diabetic, was no longer pre-diabetic. It had dropped 1.1. I lost 27 pounds in 11 weeks. And I felt like a new woman, and she could see it. And she was so excited. She didn't hug me. I would have hugged her if she would have let me, but there was that doctor patient. And and in my head, there was no part of me that said, okay, I'm picking up some rosé to celebrate these results. I had to get a wrap around my head that I am not a moderate drinker. I never have been. I never will be. And I'm going to accept that, and I'm going to get through it, and I'm going to move through it, and I'm going to figure this out. And it was about that time when I started getting emails from Megan at Sobah Sistahs, and she had a retreat in Vermont. I saw the Vermont retreat, and I thought, I can do that. I can drive. It was in June. Here it was like early November. And I thought, if I can find something to hold on to and keep me accountable till June, in my head, I was like, oh my God, can you imagine me not drinking alcohol until June? And I signed up. I gave her my deposit. I had absolutely no idea that it came with a community of women, and bi-weekly meetings, and a Slack or an app and all that. That was like the cherry on top. And I got involved in that community, and that led me to a different community. And all of a sudden, I'm showing up on Zoom meetings and sharing my story and relating with everyone that I see, everyone I'm looking at in these squares right now. It's like, we all look the same. We all experience the same shit as women. And the choices we make really do matter. And I can't believe I'm sitting here 10 days away from my year. That was a lot.
Oh, I have tears in my eyes now. Melissa, I just like that was incredible to hear your story. And when you shared about where you were, like, because when I met you in Bali, you're just like a completely different person than who you describe. And for me to sit here and be like, wow, you came from that and who you are today, like the person I met in Bali, you're so positive, so uplifting, so encouraging. And it's just incredible to think of this transformation you went through. Like it's incredible. It's so
Thank
inspiring.
you.
So
Thank
inspiring.
you. I mean, it was the thing that was really scary for me last summer is that these thoughts that I was having in my head about not wanting to get out of bed and waking up thinking, well, I'm here again on this planet for some reason. Like I'd never had those thoughts before because I was never that woman. I was always a confident woman. I was always had my head on. I was highly functional. And so when those thoughts started creeping in, they really were scary. I had seen family and friends deal with depression and anxiety and all that. And I felt like I dodged a bullet somehow by not having those feelings. And then here they were knocking on my door. And I knew exactly why they were there. Exactly. And when I had the blood work, it was like it was all black and white. And so when I think about, I'm on vacation right now. I'm at the beach. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. We have the sun out, you see people drinking, and I would the thought of like sitting on the porch looking at the ocean with a glass of wine is still very sexy and very appealing. I know it will never be one glass of wine. And the way that I will feel in the morning in such a beautiful place will just be completely wasted because I can't just have one glass of wine. I just can't. And I know this now, and I've kind of just thrown myself all in. And I mean, if you would have told me I would be having a successful, sober Instagram, like, what? Or that I would start a podcast or be on podcasts or openly, shout it from the rooftops what is going on in my life and be so proud and confident about it. I mean, it's really kind of crazy and hard to wrap my head around it. And it just is what's going on. And it's just very exciting. I've carved out a life that I feel like I always knew I could have.
It's amazing. So inspiring. So tell me about the Instagram and the podcast and everything. Like, first of all, like were you publicly talking about your sobriety right away? Or like when did that shift come in and what inspired that?
I think that I was inspired by that. Actually, along with Megan, I was a part of another group where we were kind of sober women figuring out what the next steps in our life would be as far as if starting a business or changing jobs or this and that. And there was a woman on there, Monica Hardy, and she was about 8 months sober at the time. And I was only like 3 months sober. And we had a whole conversation about what it would be like coming out on social media. And she did it. And she used Canva to, write her, make a nice, cute little post. That's the first time I heard of Canva. Um, and I saw this and I was really like, wow, I wonder if I will ever get there. And it was about 5 months. It was January of this year. And I was just kind of looking at Instagram, like what names. I was kind of making like a mental list, an actual list actually of what names could I use for this. And, a lot of names are already taken. Like the sober Instagram world is huge. And the sober New Yorker, however, was wide open. And I thought, really? Like, and honestly, the word sober and alcohol free, you go back and forth with that. Like uh, sober can sound a certain way, whereas alcohol free is a bit more benign. But the Sober New Yorker was open, and it was an early morning in January, and I took it and I started, I think I put a picture, and I I didn't even really have a bio or a post. I barely started it, and I put it aside, and I was like, okay, let me just think about this. And I got going with my day. And because I'm I mean, yeah, because I'm probably, 52 years old, I don't realize that you can't start something like that and like put it on a shelf where no one else will see it. You start it, and then your friends that you already, like my personal account, all of a sudden it pops up on their page. And I had a friend text me and she said, "Is this you?" And I said, "Oh my God." I said, "Yes, it is." Actually, this was a friend from the that first time where I had 4 months. She knew I was doing that and she was a big supporter. And she said, "Well, I know you've tried this before. And if you're," and because I said to her, "Yeah, I've been, for about 5 months." And she said, "That's amazing." And I said, "Do you want to be my first follower?" And she was. So, so it was out. The cat was out of the bag. I was like, okay, okay, right? I'm not. And then I went back and I started a bio, and I put it out there, and then I did it on Facebook because there's some older people, and that don't always do Instagram. And my parents had known, my family had known, and they were very supportive. But the world at large and other, fringe friends and things, yeah, I just kind of, it helps keep me accountable. It really does. And it's kind of the thing that, it also makes me, I'm a super creative person. I was a stage actress at one point, and I love to sing and dance and all that stuff. And so I get inspired by the creativity around it. And it turned into, something really fun for me. And it is a really inspiring place to meet other people. And from that, I mean, I thought, everyone's doing a podcast. Why couldn't I do a podcast? So I took like a 4-week mentorship program with Brad McLeod, Sober Motivation, the goat of sober podcasts, basically. And GOAT is greatest of all time, for those who don't know that acronym. No, a lot of people don't, and they're like, why is she calling him a goat? Yeah, greatest of all time. And he kind of led us through the steps, and I was like, it's not as hard as you think it is. And his motto is better done than perfect. And I love that. I love that for a lot of things, moving forward with my life. And so now it's kind of something that is really fun, and I can do it on my own time, and I can figure it out as I go. And it's been fun. So.
And have you released any episodes yet, or is it upcoming? Have you started?
Oh no, I think I've released 6 episodes. It's
Right.
The Sober New
Oh,
Yorker is the name of the podcast. And actually, do you remember Simone from Bali?
yes, I
Yeah,
saw that.
quiet little Simone. She just had her year 2 days ago. And I thought, there's no way she's gonna do my podcast. She's like a little mouse. I mean, but one-on-one, she can,
Mhm.
really talk. And she said, "Yeah, I think it's time that I start telling my story." And I thought, oh, I love that. I love that. So anyway, it's just been a fun, creative outlet for me that also helps me stay on my own path and my journey. And I think it's all about that.
Amazing. Wow. I cannot believe the sober New Yorker was not taken. Like that is the best. That's such a good Instagram handle.
I know I've heard that say to me like 20 times. Like everyone says that. And I don't know, maybe it was just meant to be.
Be. Meant to be.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. All right. Well, we just have a couple minutes left here. So I have one more question for you, but I do wish that we had more time. Like I'm kind of tempted to bring you back on the show because I just feel like we've scratched the surface into like such amazing, I think you have so much wisdom to share. So One more question, which is if you had any wisdom to yourself before you started this journey or any advice you wanted to share, what would that be?
I think it would be, don't think so much about what you are losing. Think about what you are gaining. It's so cheesy because we hear that all the time, right? It's like we take, what is the phrase? We get rid of everything for one thing. And then when we get sober, we get rid of one thing for everything. It's so true. Like I thought, how am I gonna get through certain events? Or even just coming home at the end of the day and opening up my wine and sitting down my couch. Like that was a ritual for me. It was involved in so much of what I did. And it was really daunting to think, how am I going to live without it? And one day at a time, one event at a time, your body, you get so used to, for me, I have gotten so used to feeling good. And I don't think there's any better feeling in the world than feeling good, sleeping well, waking up the same woman you went to bed as the night before is no better feeling than that. So change that mindset. Think about all you'll be gaining and not what you'll be losing.
Love that. Thank you so much, Melissa. This was an amazing, amazing, amazing episode. You're an inspiring person. And I think if this is what you accomplished in 1 year of sobriety, I just can't wait to keep following and see what's next. So
There's a
thank you.
question.
Oh, we got a question. Let's see. Someone put a question in the chat.
No, she's raising her hand.
Oh, someone's raising
Robin.
it. Oh, go ahead. Yes. Oh, let me unmute you, Robin.
We're starting your podcast, starting to work on it. Did you have fear?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's always fear. There's always doubt. I think I've gotten to the point where that fear and doubt, what's the worst that could happen? Right? Like, if two people listen to it, so what? It's two people. I have found that doing things that scare me make me grow. I mean, they make all of us grow, right? And if something scares me, like someone, Megan, I've hosted a couple meetings for Megan. She's been absent or whatever. And I said, the first time she asked me, I said, that really scares me a little bit, which is why I should do it. And when you lean in and you do it and you realize it's not that big of a deal and that tragedy did not happen, you grow. And that's how
Have you gotten any hate comments?
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
what do you do about that? Do you delete
I
posts?
block and delete. Yeah. Trolls, there's going to be trolls out there, right? That comment on things, and I block and delete. I have a video that went somewhat viral, like 300,000 views. It's all of the strollers, the empty strollers outside of the sidewalk, and it says, "Is this your why?" It's very short and it was very impactful because our whys are often our children. And I don't push a stroller anymore. But anyway, the video, I recorded it, is outside the JCC, the Jewish Community Center in Manhattan. And someone did reach out to me, and a Jewish person, and did not want the name of the institution in the comments. And I, sat with it. It's a public sidewalk, so there's no legal, but I also didn't want him to, give me, I also saw his point of view. So I deleted the comments that referred to where it was exactly. And I let him know, and he was very appreciative. I know that Jews are in a very sensitive spot right now. So little things like that. Yeah. But if there are haters, I just block and delete. And my whole thing is, if you've got haters, that's a sign you're doing something right. Like, people are going to come for you when you're doing something right. They're jealous and they see what you're doing and they don't like it, and they want to do it, even on Instagram. So Alex can relate, I'm sure.
Love that. Yeah. For a while, I have to say I kind of like when I get hate comments because it like boosts the algorithm. Like there's like more interaction happening on my
Mhm.
posts, and often people will start arguing and like defending me. And so I used to take it personally, and now I'm like, oh, this is good. Like, any comment is better than no comment is
Yeah,
my kind
yeah.
of.
Yeah, for anyone that's here that is following me, please send me a message so I know that who you are, and I can follow you back, because a lot of accounts are private, and if they follow me and I don't follow them back, usually, if I can't see, what kind of, who they are as a person. So please send me a DM, and I'd love to get to know you all on a Instagram level. And maybe you'll be on my podcast someday.